don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
What is so dangerous about a character like Ferris Bueller is he gives good kids bad ideas.
Well, why should he get to skip school when everybody else has to go?
Syphilitic meningitis?
He never gets caught.
This guy in my biology class said that if Ferris dies, he's giving his eyes to Stevie Wonder.
Well, he's very popular, Ed.
I recall Central Park in fall.
Ferris Bueller, do you know?
Yeah, he's getting me out of summer school.
They think he's a righteous dude.
Think he'll be alive this weekend? I can see him denying popular belief, setting off on some impossible mission.
Jeopardizes my ability to effectively govern this student body.
He does whatever he wants,
You know, as long as I've known him, everything works for him.
whenever he wants.
He's very cool.
And he never gets nailed.
Ferris can do anything.
Oh, he's such a sweetie.
Wake up and smell the coffee, Mrs. Bueller. It's a fool's paradise. He is just leading you down the primrose path. Matthew Broderick.
Bueller. Ferris Bueller.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Because life is too beautiful a thing to waste.
Hey there, and welcome back to my movie diary. I'm obviously Dave. This is the pod where I revisit films that I watched years ago, along with films that I haven't seen before that have just come out, and I talk about them and I compare my thoughts now to back then. This film is one of the reasons why I'm doing this pod. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, one of the defining films of my teenage years. Wow. Watching it again instantly took me back to being 14 years old in 1986 when I saw it at the Wollongong Town cinemas with some mates. The other thing I remember about that, apart from how awesome this movie was having a huge Jaffa fight with some other dudes across the aisle. And the sound of those Jaffas hitting the wood paneling on the other aisle was just incredible. And I think the defining thing for me in watching this again now is remembering how I felt back then. I had my whole life ahead of me. Freedom, possibilities were endless, and optimism was there. And I think this film still captures that better than almost any other 80s movie. And I guess finally, the thing that it really rams home is just how lucky I was to grow up in the 80s. Wow, what a decade. Things were so much simpler then, and we didn't have the technology or the options that people have now, but goddamn, we had a lot of fun. Anyway, getting on to this film. Quick plot summary. Obviously, the title says it all. Ferris Bueller wakes up. He's obviously done some prep, quite a bit of prep, and he takes a sick day from school. Consummate acting from Ferris fools his parents, though they are fairly gullible, I will say that. His sister, however, is definitely onto him, and she is not happy. She's one of the best characters in this. Anyway, he convinces his best friend Cameron and his girlfriend Sloane to spend the day in Chicago with him, and hijinks ensue. Meanwhile, Principal Ed Rooney, an absolute maniac, is obsessively trying to catch him. He dedicates his whole day to reeling in Ferris, teaching him a lesson, probably bringing some meaning to his life. And we get to see that. We get to see Ferris' sister growing increasingly furious throughout the film. Look, in summary, the story becomes one giant celebration of youth, rebellion, and living in the moment, which kind of ties into what I said at the top. That's how you feel when you watch this. It always uplifts me, this film, and makes me realise that it's great to be alive. What more can you ask for? Who made it? John Hughes. Possibly, this is maybe a big call, possibly the defining filmmaker of the 80s. He could be one of the greatest and most important directors or writers, he did both, of the 80s. You know, we're talking about a decade when Spielberg was really peaking, Martin Scorsese, Coppola was still there. It was when movies really took off and became a big business. John Hughes flew under the radar. I don't think anybody really knows much about him personally. That's the way he wanted it. He didn't cultivate any celebrity or mystique, or didn't seem to have a Hollywood ego, I think. But what did he do? He just quietly made one classic after another. Let's have a look. 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, this, Weird Science, Planes, Trains and Automobiles, Uncle Buck. I mean, what a run. All of those are bona fide classics. For me, especially this film, Breakfast Club is just as good, but I've got a slightly different relationship with it to this. I saw it at the time and it didn't land as fully as this one did, but watching it recently, I can appreciate why it's got the rep it does. Planes, Trains and Automobiles, so rewatchable, so funny. Watching Steve Martin and John Candy vibe with each other is just incredible. So what a run. I think he really changed teen movies, because I feel like before John Hughes came along, teenagers in films, or films for teenagers, were often very stereotypical. They were treated as kids, caricatures, pretty shallow rebels, and John Hughes came along, took a totally fresh look at this segment of the population, and stunningly treated them like real people, as unfinished adults, but emotionally complex human beings. What a thought. I think he understood that when you're 14, 15, 16, embarrassment is life-defining. It feels like the worst thing in the world. You'd rather die than be embarrassed in front of your peers. Rejection, devastating. We've all been there. Fitting in matters enormously. You're really trying to sort out who you are, trying to, what's your identity in life? And your friendships mean everything. Romance feels overwhelming for most of us. So I think, in summary, John Hughes really respected young audiences. He didn't talk down to them. And I think that's why generations, but especially that generation, connected so deeply to his films. And I was one of them. I was right in that sweet spot when all these films were coming out. And like I said, I think this film in particular really connected with me, and it made me think, wow, someone else out there understands me. And not just anyone, an older guy, Hollywood. There's other people in the world. And that's a really important thing. He also got how important music was to young people. There's always great beats in his films. And I reckon his films use music really emotionally to identify those things. The romance, the rebellion, the sadness, the freedom. There's some great tracks in this film, particularly Oh Yeah from Yellow. I mean, how much more 80s can you get from that? Don't You Forget About Me is another one. I think the songs sometimes become inseparable from the movies themselves, and that's definitely the case with this one. I think overall, John Hughes just really understood that teenagers experience life through music. That sums me up to a T at that age. Around 14, 15, music really just took my head off. It dictated what I did in life, what I felt about life, how I related to other people, how I found other people. And back then, and I've told this story many times to people, that it was so different to now. Now everything's at your fingertips. You can grab any song or album you want. Everyone's a so-called expert. Back then, you had to track it down, hunt it down. It became yours. It was physical. It was in your hand. It meant something. If you lost it or it got damaged or you lent it to someone, it was gone. You didn't have it. You learned to treasure things. You had to work for them. Geez, I'm sounding like an old fella now. But anyway, music was, I feel like it was even more emotionally important back then. His films still work. And they actually, I think he likes young people. That's obvious. Even when these characters are really selfish or immature, arrogant at times, but always confused, he gives them warmth and empathy and lots of humor, which is really critical too. it's like the gateway to these films. I think people go in for a comedy and they get that, but they get a hell of a lot more. They get to learn about life through a teenager or young adult's eyes instead of just cynicism. So, yeah, that was a lot about John Hughes, but I feel like it's long overdue. Is this the best 80s comedy? Wow. That's another thing that we've lost, I reckon. The comedies back then, there was a never-ending run of them. Some of them were just laugh out loud funny. This film's got a lot of laugh out loud moments. Even though I've seen it, I don't know, 20, 25 times. Watching it again last night, it's just one after the other. I lost count of how many great moments they are. But I thought, why is this one so good? Why is it so funny, specifically? And I thought about it, and I think it's because the characters are well defined. So let's take Ed Rooney as an example, the maniac school principal, and Grace, his sardonic, sarcastic secretary. Their interactions together, probably the funniest things in the film for me. And it's because you get an early insight into their character, you identify with them, they probably remind you of someone, specifically at school. And when they're bouncing off each other and she's taking him down big time, she's really riding him hard, and it's so funny. He's stressing. He's in that conversation with Cameron, pretending to be George Peterson, Ferris's girlfriend's dad. That was the funniest part of the film for me, and it's because they're not just jokes. They're interactions between people that we can identify with, and that Hughes has given us enough depth to appreciate. And you can feel their frustration, you can feel their pain and stress. And for characters like this, you really want to see them under pressure. So look, I think this film is on the podium at least for best 80s comedy drama. Best 80s comedy, that widens the field considerably to heaps of other bangers. There's too many to name, but I think comedy drama is a slightly different category that allows this one to really be at the top of that list. Best coming of age movie of all time, it's definitely in the conversation as well. I'm biased, obviously, because this came out when I was right in that moment, 14 years old, and watched it with mates. We were just vibing for ages after we got out of the cinema, and it never went away. I've watched this movie with my kids. They love it. Everyone loves it. It's a generational film. I recommended this film to people when they've said, I've got a 10-year-old in the school holidays. What can we watch together? This is always number one. It works because unlike a lot of teen comedies, it's funny, it's warm, a lot of style in this film too that shouldn't go unrealized. John Hughes is doing a lot with the camera work. There's a lot of interesting moments. Just one example is when Ed Rooney is getting terrorized by the Bueller family dog. Looks like a Doberman, and he's stuck in the backyard, and he's peeking through the hole in the gate. All you can see is this giant eyeball moving around, and in a really tight close up. It's just out of the ordinary, and it shows you that Hughes was much more than just a guy who understood kids. Okay, on to some other aspects of this film. Matthew Broderick as Ferris Bueller. The thing I always think about when I watch this, when I revisit, is why didn't Matthew Broderick become a gigantic movie star after this? It's one of the great charismatic performances of the decade, not just in a comedy sense. He is really attuned to comedy. You can see that he grabs it. He's not forcing himself to do the comedy spots in this film. Really now when I think about it, Ferris should be a bit difficult to take. He's really smug. He manipulates his friends, especially Cameron. He's definitely privileged. I love that house. Matthew Broderick somehow makes him charming and funny and impossible not to support. I think there's some reasons for that. Yes, Broderick is awesome. I think John Hughes does so much with his script, and the performances from Jeffrey Jones as Rooney. I mean, who? As if you wouldn't be rooting for Ferris Bueller in this film. But one other thing. I think it's the best film ever for breaking the fourth wall. There's so many excellent parts where Ferris is speaking directly to the audience. It creates real intimacy with the audience. It lets us feel part of the adventure. We're complicit. We're kind of along for the ride. We know the joke that he's pulling on all the oldies in this film. I guess where I land about Matthew Broderick is he probably got so identified with this role, he did for me, so I assume he did for most people, that he got stereotyped, in short, and it was the defining moment of his career. He never really got past it. He had some issues away from the screen. I think he did some time for a road accident that he injured or injured someone. So that probably derailed him for a minute there. But I think he's so of that time. His whole look, his whole manner screams 80s, mid-80s, particularly this film. So I suspect he was never able to break away from it. So I'll probably answer my own question there. Some other things that I really noticed. I also love some of the other things that John Hughes did, which was the text on the screen. Specifically the faking out parents checklist early in the film when Ferris is sitting on his bed. So those on-screen text graphics, I don't think I'd seen those before when I saw Ferris Bueller's Day Off the first time. Combined with the direct-to-camera narration that occurs, it felt so fresh. It felt wild. Like, oh my God, it's nearly like Ferris Bueller's coming out of the screen at us. And it was 7 or 8 years before Tarantino arrived and before he really made this a trope with Pulp Fiction. So the way that John Hughes played with structure and let the audience in was really underappreciated, I think. All right, some other things that I want to talk about. The school sequences early in the film. The roll call is iconic. You know, Bueller 4 or 5 times. All the teachers and administrators really are portrayed like zombies in this film. It's hilarious because, sad to say, and apologies to any good teachers out there, but back in the 80s, my experience was that most teachers were like this. This is how school felt like. Look, it's done a little bit over the top with the way the kids are totally zoned out, but that's how it did feel to an extent. You had teachers up the front lecturing at us endlessly. We were just expected to take notes. Very minimal interaction, usually only if you're getting in trouble. And what that led to was total disengagement. So again, John Hughes has got his finger on the pulse, but he does it in a really funny way. Oh, Jeffrey Jones as Ed Rooney. My God. One of the best portrayals of the bad guy in a film. He is hilarious. He's so obsessive, and his bitterness comes through writ large. He's so childish as well. He's totally consumed by catching Ferris. So this is a guy, midlife crisis, life's passed him by a bit. Okay, he's the principal of this school, but he seems to be a guy with a big chip on his shoulder, thinks he could have been a lot more. What he does with this character is fantastic. With his eyes in particular, he's got these huge big eyes that he uses in great ways to glare at people and stare maniacally around the place. Huge big teeth too that he gnashes constantly. And the way he uses his voice 9 times, you know, he's just repulsive. And he makes it so easy to root for Ferris. he's totally obsessed with catching Ferris. He also does some great physical comedy in this. I love the way how he runs down the hallway and then has to stop every time he comes to a door and walk past normally, and then starts running again. Stop, start. Also, when he gets when his car gets towed away from out the front of Ferris's house, it's like the final endpoint on the day that he's had. He's been mauled by the dog. He's had the shit kicked out of him by Ferris's sister. And then his car gets towed away. He runs along in that awkward style he's got. His pants are mangled. His shoes have been eaten by the dog. He manages to get close enough to the driver's side door to stick the key in. And then the car takes off. So he's lost his keys as well. And he just starts chasing after it a bit more in a really pathetic way. Oh, another laugh out loud moment. The film really swings easily from some heartfelt scenes into absurd comedy, and that's part of the magic. Jennifer Grey, I think she's nearly the secret MVP of this film. She makes stealing scenes her number one aim, and God, I loved her in this. The ultimate angry teenage sister performance, right from the get-go. You know, classic lines. That's it. I want out of this family. If I was bleeding out my eyes, you'd still make me go to school. You know, right from the get-go, we can see what sort of person she is. She's sick of Ferris getting all the favors, all the limelight, all the moments at school when all the kids keep on coming up and saying, "Oh, is he okay? We've started a collection for him." Her put-downs of people in this film, I lost count of them. They're great. Especially the scenes with Charlie Sheen at the end when she's waiting in the police station. The way she puts him down a few times, so good. He's so zoned out that he's sort of oblivious to it, and that's a great scene in the film. But she really reminded me of a young Barbra Streisand too, a whole look. And she's someone else I think that got typecast in partly with this, but definitely in Dirty Dancing the year after. And she never really recovered from that either. So I feel like this film was so good that it actually hurt the careers of the people who shone in it, apart from John Hughes. But the actors, I think are of such a time and place that nothing they ever did could top this. And I think Hollywood realised that, and they weren't probably given the roles that they needed. Now on to Alan Ruck as Cameron, the heart of the film. Fantastic. I think a lot about this character now, and his permanent anxiety and doom hanging over him. He's such an original. He's such a unique guy for me, especially at that time. I don't think I'd ever seen anyone in a film portrayed like this. And he's sort of put there to be different to... Let me start again. I think most of us, when we watched this the first time, thought that Ferris is the normal guy, that the ultra cool guy. Cameron's the weirdo who's got all these problems. But then when I think about it more, I have a different take now, that Cameron's the normal guy. We all felt like that to some extent. It's played here for laughs, and as a way to... His character's really a way to talk through some issues and some more serious things that are really worth talking about in the film. They do it entertainingly. The performance is so good that he really is the key in many ways to a lot of the scenes with Ferris, and his darkness to Ferris's positivity is a great contrast. So Ferris really represents freedom. Cameron is all about fear and anxiety. And Cameron's really the much more rounded character. And I think the scene where they're trying to put the miles back on the 1961 Ferrari, Cameron's dad's car, and the car goes backwards out the window. They're all just staring out at the damage. And the aftermath of that is that Cameron comes to some firm decisions about what he needs to do with his relationship with his dad, needs to stand up for himself. And I wonder if that's ultimately what the film was about. That was the Ferris Bueller was the Trojan horse for getting this idea through to the audience, even if we didn't realize it at the time. So yeah, I love his performance. He's so quotable. It's so original. So, like I said, such a unique character. One of my favorites. The reveal of the Ferrari, actually, really, you can't get much more 80s imagery than that. When Ferris and Cameron are there, Ferris decides that the only way they can pull off the ruse of getting Sloane out of school for the day, after Cameron's hilarious impersonation of her dad, George Peterson, with Ed Rooney, the only way they can pull this off is to show up in a car that is indicative of an older guy. So they've got to take the Ferrari. We come to the scene, the door goes up. We've got Yellow's "Oh Yeah" playing. It's perfect. Ultimate 80s imagery, the Ferrari. Then they get in the car and they drive through. We get a look at the Chicago skyline, the synth pop in the background. Other 80s moments throughout this, the fashions, the flip-up sunglasses that Ed Rooney's wearing, the wood panel station wagon. So many things scream 80s at me, and it's all the great things about the 80s. Positivity, optimism, even probably where it wasn't warranted, but it's pure time capsule filmmaking. It's so cool. Really, really enjoyable. The other thing to me when I watch this is what a day they have. Like, it's, in reality, if you do a timestamp, it's probably 2 days what they get through. But anyway, I'm not going to quibble about that. The thing that stands out to me now is that we're talking about, 17-year-olds here, I think. They don't spend the day doing dumb teenager stuff, or stuff that I was doing actually at the time. They go to the art gallery. They stand there and appreciate the pictures. They fool around at the baseball game. They go to the fancy restaurant, and when they're trying to get in with the maitre d', reminds me a lot of the scene in Beverly Hills Cop as well. Steals a little bit from that film in that respect. All the city sightseeing, the fair. There's something classy and aspirational about their adventure. Apart from making Chicago look like a magical city, it's really a cut above what you'd expect, and I don't know, it just makes it more interesting and adds a lot more to this film. I talked before about the comedy details. There's too many to mention, but some that really stood out for me. Like I said, Cameron's prank call to Rooney as George Peterson. Not only Ed Rooney's reactions where he thinks he's got him, but it's when Ferris calls through on the other line. The look on Ed Rooney's face when he realizes that he likely is talking to George Peterson, even though we know he's not. And the way that Grace has to impersonate him on the phone for a minute. That whole scene is fantastic. One of the funniest scenes in movie history for me. Just the other little things. Grace pulling 2 or 3 pencils out of her hair, like she's forgotten they're there and didn't realise. Charlie Sheen's whole bit in the police station. It's ironic how his life turned out, and he didn't look too different from that about 20 or 30 years later. I've already mentioned Rooney trying to unlock the car while it's being towed. Really, any scene with Rooney in it, even the way when the end credits roll and he's trudging along the side of the road, the bus pulls up, the school bus, and he gets on board. He is so good in this. Not worth talking about all of them. Just watch the film. It's packed with visual and dialogue comedy. It satisfies every taste that you have in comedy. Look, the nostalgia factor is undeniable for any of us that were around in the 80s. This is, like I said, a time capsule. If aliens come here, we're all gone. If there's a way for them to see this film, they'll get a perfect snapshot of what it felt like in the mid-80s as a teenager. It's perfect for that. The main thing is I feel young when I watch this, and that's rare. But it's more than the nostalgia. It really recreates the emotional feelings that I had back then. Some good, some bad, bittersweet, but that's life. I think that's why this film endures, that people aren't just revisiting the story, they're revisiting how they felt. That's why the best films, the best music, the best literature still lives on decades or even centuries after it's created, because it resonates with people. I think at the end of the day, we're all looking for connections, however we can find them, and this film joins all the dots in a really entertaining way. So my final thoughts are that this film still feels funny. It's definitely funny. Maybe it's even funnier now through my midlife lens. It's really inventive with what John Hughes does. It's so warm. It's endlessly quotable. The main thing is it just recreates and captures that emotional fantasy of youth better than almost any other film I've watched. So it's one of the defining films of the 80s. It isn't just about a guy taking a day off from school. I think it's really about trying to hold on to that feeling that life is exciting and full of possibility before adulthood closes in. But hey, maybe even when that does occur, maybe there's still a chance to break out a bit. All right, that's it for me. Hope you enjoyed the episode. See you next time.